Hey guys, it's JC from J&E Eclectics and the soon-to-be Establishing Quarantine podcast. In today's video, you're going to see the equipment that I ordered and why I ordered it for this podcast and what my plans are. So, a few years ago, I bought a poker table. And in my head, getting a bunch of friends together in the kitchen around the table to play poker and just kind of tell stories would have been awesome for like a podcast. And I kept telling everybody, man, I'm gonna start a podcast. And I never really did. We did start having poker nights and they just turned into like these wild, crazy nights, which were great. But I never shot any of the footage. And I always had in the back of my head that a podcast is something I wanted to do, mostly because of my eclectic background. And when I'm with my friends and we're telling stories and stuff, sometimes the stories are so crazy that you wouldn't believe it unless you were there. And that's kind of the goal here, spending money on setting up a podcast finally, because I have even more to talk about today than I did 3-4 years ago. And I quit my 6-figure job to start my own custom apparel business from my house. So definitely the podcast will be titled Establishing Quarantine, and just like the tagline for my business. And I think that I want to have like-minded people who are either itching to get out of their 9-to-5 jobs and really invest in themselves on the show. People who have already done it so that they can share some of the things that maybe I want to start trying to do myself, and really just tell stories, right? Just kind of get that out there and hopefully inspire other people. And the podcast will really just be for that, really just kind of sharing my journey. And then we have some really fun things coming in the future in the next few months that I think establishing the podcast now, I'll be able to kind of catalog that footage. That way I'm building an archive, because I don't want to give too many things away, but there is something huge coming for me and for our business this summer. And I think that getting the podcast up and going right now, there'll be so much more to talk about when that happens. All right, guys, I've got an exclusive for you. You want to see some Hollywood magic? This is my finished studio. Just kidding. Follow me around the room and you'll see how much work is really left. So you can see here, this wall has yet to be painted. It's actually pink. The door's not covered. There's no soundproofing put up anywhere yet. And since we've got a print shop for the custom apparel business right next door, we've actually got boxes in the corner here of blank shirts and hoodies that we still got to get orders done on. We got the soundproof foam that needs to go up. It's right here airing out. It takes like 48 hours to expand. And then boxes of just AS colored Gildans, a whole bunch of different blank garments. And inside this closet, more boxes. So we've actually got our custom J&E Eclectics boxes inside here, as well as some blank canvases for when we print on the canvases. And even more boxes of blank shirts on the other side. So Hollywood magic, it looks great in this one corner, but the reality is it is a process. So this is about 1 week worth of work. We knocked out 2 walls, got to get the soundproofing in and everything else set up, but it's definitely a lot of work. So when I first started looking into setting up a podcast, I kind of do my research a little bit backwards. What are the podcasts I'm interested in? And then what is it about them that captivates me? And for a podcast, it's sound. Almost for every video, they're about 50% sound anyway. So as I'm sure people who watch this video can tell, this room's very echoey, right? It's like an echo chamber, but that's because it's bare. There's nothing in here yet. It's just getting set up for the studio. Eventually we'll have the dampening acoustics set on the wall that are going to be hopefully mitigating a lot of that echo. And when I catch a podcast that I really like, it's like, okay, what kind of equipment are they using? And then looking up tutorials from other YouTubers, how to start a podcast, those kinds of things. And one of the things I noticed was everyone pretty much agrees that the Shure SM7B is the go-to mic for podcasts. If I'm gonna start spending a bunch of money, I might as well get at least the audio equipment that's at the top of the line, because I won't have to replace it later, ideally. So I got that, and then I went with the Zoom PodTrack P4. That way I could plug in at least 4 different XLR mics, or I could have 2 guests with me here and someone can call in. You have that capability of just dialing in someone from Zoom or from their phone, which is pretty cool. And then what is going to control all of this, right? So if I have the multiple camera setups, which we're working on as soon as the new Sony cameras get in, everyone on YouTube said that the ATEM Pro or ATEM Pro Mini was the switcher to go to. This can actually connects straight to just about anything: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And once you have this thing on and those accounts set up through your computer, you just basically click record and you're live streaming. And then you can just like a news channel, basically switch between camera angles or whoever the different people are in the room. So I figured for my video podcast, since it's going to be a lot of storytelling, a lot of talking heads, get the multiple cameras and camera angles and have something that's really small, hence the name mini. And it won't really be distracting if I'm reaching out and touching camera 1, 2, 3, for example. And there was a really great video put out by Think Media on a 2-person podcast setup, basically. And it was a setup of if you have the money. 3 cameras, so you get these different angles. And this is the equipment that they use in there, with the exception of the PodTrack 4. I think they recommended the H6 by Zoom. But this one I found with the ability to have someone call in and join the show was something that I would want better. And then there's just a bunch of other successful people on YouTube who've put out videos. For example, if you see I've got a small Pelican Case here, that's for a project that I'm going to be doing for this podcast, where I turned that into an all-in-one box that'll house the A10 Pro Mini and the PodTrack 4, as well as this 4K monitor, so I can actually see off camera what each of the camera angles looks like. So Think Media did a video on this box as well, and they got that idea from DSLR Video Shooter, so Caleb on YouTube. So shout out to those guys for making it easy for someone like me who's just getting into this to be able to find real life footage of how it actually would look set up correctly. So I look forward to being able to take this background in this studio and actually turn it into one of those professional studios, and then run some of the YouTube content through here as well as that podcast.
What are you missing?
Yeah. So right now, as soon as you start to get your equipment, you have a checklist. What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? So definitely for the 2 of us from Eclectics, I needed 2 microphones. But then I thought, what about the guest that comes in person? So I ordered a 3rd microphone that's on the way. We got the Sennheiser 280 Pros, which are just for hearing your own audio output. So I went ahead and ordered a 3rd one, and all of this stuff showed up except for the 3rd mic and 3rd headset and the cameras. So I ordered 2 Sony A7Cs to shoot the video, and I'm still waiting on both of them to show up. I think one gets here tomorrow and one gets here next week now. So once those show up, I've already got the tripods for them, and I've already got the professional lighting, which hasn't been set up yet. And then that's it, really. All right, guys, this has been a glimpse into the mindset of JC from J&D Eclectics and what I'm looking for with my podcast setup. So you've seen some of the equipment that I've ordered, and you've heard me talk about the ideas for building this room out. So if you want to see what the finished product looks like and how that podcast sounds, then subscribe right now and stay tuned.